You think corruption starts with greed. It doesn't. It starts with your cleanest story about yourself. A local paper calls you a breath of fresh air. Cameras find your best angle. Congress is bigger. The smiles are sharper. That line should scare you. It flatters you, telling you your values are so admirable that money now follows virtue. It lets you believe the check is not a transaction, just support. You win. You go to Washington. You tell yourself you finally made it to the control room. 3 months later, the call comes. A small tax provision, nothing major, dense language, buried in a bill thick enough to stop a bullet. His company saves maybe $2 million. Thousands of others do too. Job creators, economic growth. Nobody asks you to stuff cash in a freezer. Nobody says, betray your voters. They just hand you a justification, polished enough to look like public service. And that's how most people get eaten. Not by evil, they can recognize, but by complexity, they are too proud to question. You vote yes because it's defensible. You vote yes because it helps more than one company. You vote yes because the headline won't scream scandal. You vote yes because the story in your head still says hero. Then, another call, another vote. This one cuts closer, environmental rules, manufacturing waste. You hesitate good. That means some part of you still has a pulse. But then comes the script. Regulations kill American jobs. Factories move overseas. Foreign countries pollute more. So loosening standards here is practically the responsible choice. Now, your betrayal arrives wearing the mask of pragmatism. And that's the second lie you built your life on. That selling out always feels like surrender. Usually, it feels like maturity, like nuance, like finally understanding how the world really works. You don't notice the shift all at once. Your supporters do. They feel it before you admit it. The people who once saw a reformer now see someone translating power into cleaner language. And if you're honest, that's the real danger in finance, in politics, in all of it. The system rarely asks you to become a monster in one night. It just keeps paying you to reinterpret your conscience until you call compromise wisdom. Tell me the truth. If the check came before the favor, and the favor came wrapped in words like growth, jobs, and realism, how many people would still swear they could never be bought? This is where the numbers stop pretending to be innocent. At first, it sounds clean, legal, even respectable. One businessman takes you to an expensive steakhouse. Then he brings friends. Then all of them repeat the same line. Too many regulations, too much red tape. They just want to do business. So you take the calls, make introductions, open a door here, speed up a file there. Nothing illegal. That's the shield. That's the story. But now, do the math. Back in Congress, one check was $50,000. One vote later, his company stood to save $2 million in taxes. $50,000 to protect $2 million. That is not support. That is an investment. A 40-to-1 return. And it went through. 4 years pass. You run for Senate. Same network, same smiles, only bigger. The businessman gives the legal maximum, then his wife, then the children, then employees, then company PACs. By the time the money finishes changing hands, your campaign account sits at $3 million. $3 million. Not because 3 million strangers believed in you, because a small circle learned your price, without ever having to say it out loud. And look at the spread. Your opponent is only 5 points behind. 5. That's the gap between power and unemployment, between a motorcade and a concession speech. So when your advisors panic, they're not panicking over ideas. They're staring at polls, ad buys, county maps, donor calls, the simple arithmetic of survival. That's the second equation. No one says out loud. A race can swing on 5 points. Your campaign has 3 million. One donor class already proved it can move money in waves. So when a fixer walks in wearing an expensive suit and says he solves problems, he's not introducing corruption. He is entering a market that already exists, and he knows your exact pressure point. Lose this race, and all that access evaporates. Donors vanish. Favors stop compounding. Win, and everyone gets paid in the currency that matters most. Future leverage. So when he mentions your opponent's gambling problem, listen to how the language works. Just debts, bad decisions, the kind of thing that makes voters nervous. He doesn't offer a crime, he offers a shift, a narrative hit. A 5-point race doesn't need truth. It needs movement. You tell him to leave, of course you do. That costs nothing. The real number comes 3 weeks later. He is still climbing. Your team is still panicking. You are still about to lose. Not ethics class, not a speech. Just one phone number on one card on one desk. 3 million backing, your name. 5 points between you and humiliation. 2 days after you call, photos appear. That timing tells you everything. Not months, not after an investigation, 2 days. The machine was ready before you said yes. The scandal package was pre-built. The dirt, real or fake, was inventory. You didn't create the system. You just finally used the service. That's the brutal math of power. $150 K-check to unlock $2 million. One network to stack $3 million. One 5-point deficit to trigger panic. One phone call. And a man with a clean record is suddenly bleeding credibility on every screen in the state. You think the dirty part is the fake photo, the casino, the chips, the drunken blur on the evening news. But that's just the receipt printer. The transaction happened later, quiet on the phone. One laugh, one sentence. I don't want money, I want access. It's the factory town that never sees the investigation. The family breathing bad air because the rule got delayed. The system doesn't steal from you in one cinematic heist. It skims. A permit here, a case buried there, a judge. By the time you reach the Senate, the sorting is complete. You get titles, invitations, motorcades, oil paintings, a polished desk. People stand when you enter, and everyone below you gets the story about service, sacrifice, hard work. But the money story is simpler. Who owns the exception? Who controls the delay? Who gets access before the public even knows a decision exists? That's where wealth moves, not through effort, but permission. You tell yourself you're still one of the good guys, because nothing points directly back to you. No fingerprints, no envelope, no obvious crime scene. Just a chain of favors so well dressed it passes for governance. But guilt wakes you up. Your body understands. What your mouth won't say, every rung up the ladder required somebody else to become more disposable. And the cruelest part, you still think the top will free you. That once you have enough power, you can cut the rope behind you. You can't. The people who own your rise don't let go. When you get expensive, that's when they collect. So ask yourself this, in a system like that, who is actually powerful? The person on the ballot, or the person who never has to appear on one? It happens fast, too fast to feel real. One nod in a concrete garage. And now, a woman's entire career is fed into a machine. You pretended not to see. So here's the only move that still works when you're already contaminated. You don't start with a confession. You start with friction. You take one object, one card, one channel the fixer can reach you through. And you break the path, not forever, just tonight. Put the private phone in a drawer you don't open after 8. Write the number he uses on a sheet of paper. Next to it, 7 words. If it needs darkness, it costs me. Leave that paper on top of tomorrow's briefing folder, where your hand has to touch it before any decision. Small, petty, mechanical, that's the point. Because corruption doesn't usually enter through ideology, it enters through convenience. One late call. One urgent meeting. One sentence you let someone else finish for you. Then add a second rule. No approvals. Standing up. No approvals. In transit. No garages. No cars. No hallways. No elevators. No speakerphone between events. If someone wants a yes, it waits for daylight. A desk. A written summary with your name on the page. That one boring rule kills half the poison. Not because it makes you moral, because it makes you slower. And slowness is expensive to people who profit from your reflexes. You'd be shocked how much evil needs speed. If the line for beneficiary makes your stomach tighten, that's your answer. If the ask can't survive being written, it shouldn't survive being done. This is how you cut the old habit. Not with a speech about integrity, but one dead simple interruption between impulse and action. A drawer, a page, a daylight rule. Something so dull, your ego hates it. Your ego built this trap. Because once the stories hit plagiarism, fabrication, ethical violations crawling across screens, you'll tell yourself it's already too late. That the machine is moving. Your campaign can't stop. But that lie starts earlier, in tiny permissions. In all the moments you let urgency outrank evidence. So if you want one real test, use this. The next time a powerful person asks for a private answer, make them send a public version first. Watch how many emergencies evaporate when they need a document trail. That isn't redemption, not yet. It's smaller than that. It's just the first cut in the wire. If the call came tonight and saying no meant you lose everything, everything, except yourself, would you actually let it ring?